I've always been interested. So I am a teacher. Well, I was a teacher before I retired from that. But like in teaching, you come across all these different, kinds of kids that are from different like lifestyles and kids that are unhoused and kids that, are without some parents for whatever reason. And that has always like, kind of like uh not necessarily bothered me, but it really like pressed on my heart because I'm just thinking about all these things that they have, all this growing up that they have to do so quickly, that they can't enjoy being in school and they have issues in school because of these things and to be, really compassionate and considerate of those things that they're dealing with. So that kind of like just stuck with me when I wrote Behind These Four Walls, thinking about Isla, she doesn't have either parent. She's in this system. And not only that, she's about to age out. And I was watching this documentary about, when the struggles that kids have when they're about to age out because they haven't been fostered or they haven't been adopted. So what do you do with these kids that are about to age out and can't be in, the group homes or anything anymore, but they don't really have money like that? How are they supposed to then become this adult that's self-sufficient? And it's like so problematic and like most states don't have um laws in place to protect them and to help them in that transition. Some of them do, but most do not. And so they really get stuck under. And so Isla was really worried about what am I going to do when I am aged out? I have nothing. She lives in Daytona. And she meets Eden, and Eden is she has just her mother, and she has only told Isla just a part of her life, and she is someone who's very hurt, and she and Isla just kind of connect, and they just are like, when you leave the foster care system, we're just gonna start our life fresh, kind of like Thelma and Louise. We're just gonna go across the country to LA, and I'm gonna try to be a star, and you could figure out what you want to be, and it'll be great. And so they have this big, when with your best friend, you always come up with these really big ideas that you want to do with your best friend. And so when Eden's mother, the only parent that she has, passes away, Eden is like, okay, well, we're gonna go. This is right before Isla is supposed to be aged out. So she's technically a minor still. And so that means that Eden, who is like 18, could get in trouble if they were to get caught. So it's very undercover. Like, and so they decide to run away before, Isla ages out or anything like that. And then they stop at this town because Eden says that she's got something to do there. And she has always blamed this family, the Corrigan family, for the state that her and her mother were in. So she has this really deep hatred for them. And that's how she had portrayed herself to Isla. So Isla's thinking that we're going to this town, she's gonna do whatever, with this family, and then we're gonna move on. But what happens is that Eden says, I'm going to be right back, as all classic horror movies they say, and then she doesn't come back. And Isla is now stuck because she's ran away. She doesn't want to go back. She's supposed to be going to Los Angeles. What is she supposed to do? And so she really has to like grow at that moment. She can't find her friend. She doesn't know this town. She's really lost and alone for the like really, really alone for the very first time in her life. And that starts her journey. And she's never forgotten this friend who never showed up in the news. Like nobody knows that she's missing. It's only her. So who's going to believe this little black girl who, we don't even know where you come from. You're not even supposed to be here. And she's afraid that they'll send her back. So she doesn't say anything. And so, oh, years pass, but she's always thinking about this friend that just totally disappeared. And until she happens to come across this family, then she decides, you know what, I need to find out what happened to Eden. And the only people who are going to be able to tell me is this family. And so I must go and infiltrate them and find out what happened to Eden. So I'm one who I love to play with flashbacks. I'm a reader who anything that I'm reading, I want to know everything that I could possibly know about that character because I really want to be invested in their story. And so when we meet Isla, like she's on a job, so she's become not necessarily a fixer, but she's like the helper of the fixer. Those publicity fixers who fixes problems for, their high profile clients. And so she's the person, she and her two friends from college, she's the person who goes out and finds the dirt that the fixer, the PR company will use to help their clients or hurt someone else or do whatever. So that is what she has turned her talents into, because she's like, a girl who's very comfortable with dealing with things from the street, and she's comfortable with being with all sorts of people. She has pulled herself up by the bootstraps by being able to go to college and get that degree. And so she's super smart. She's street smart. And she's not one to trust very easily. And she also has like a little bit of a chip on her shoulder because of her history and her past, and that she's never forgotten this friend. So that's how we meet her. And then she's put into this predicament where some information that she and her team uncovered, was used in a way that it harmed someone, and she wasn't prepared for that, and so that is something that she feels like she and her team have to be, vindicated, like they were a part in this person being harmed, and now they've got to figure out like what happened there. And that's what ties into this, super mega rich very powerful family, Corrigan. So she's like, this family, I remember this name. These are the people that like were around when Eden disappeared. Now they're here with this person who got hurt. And like, so definitely like this is kismet. I must go and figure out like what happened, not only to this person presently, but also to Eden, and get justification, or get justice for both of them, and call this family out. So that's what she becomes.
Yeah, and I mean, so she kind of goes undercover here, really. For
Mhm.
talk about that, taking her undercover, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that one was hard because I was like, how in the world would she be able to infiltrate this family that would be typically very, suspicious of her and of newcomers and stuff like that. And so she comes up with, infiltrating them through the weakest link, honestly. And she's done, the recon of, the family, and she and her team, since they know how to uncover secrets, they have that toolbox of using technology and all of those things that they can implement here to help her. And she, is just really, she's not scared of what might happen to her. So she finds the weakest link to kind of get her in, and she just uses her, her feminine wild, and then she also uses, like, she knows the head, Victor Corrigan. He's the patriarch of the family, and he's really, really someone who's tough, right? And so she just tries to, with him, be like honest, just to be herself, and which ends up being different from what he has surrounded. Like, she's not a lackey who's trying to like kiss his butt all the time. And so that like piques his interest. And so even if he doesn't necessarily believe her, and that's the thing, is like none of them necessarily, they're like, there's something, like she's got something up her sleeve. But like she's so different from them and their lifestyle that Victor allows her in. And they say in the book, like, why are you doing this? And he doesn't really like answer them. He finds her interesting. And so that is, she's just a little bit of luck and the magic of storytelling. He just finds her interesting. And I think even in life, like some people that I'm like, I really just don't like this person, but I just find how they are very interesting. They're so intriguing. And so then I just like keep like listening to them, and, like talking to them, or just finding out like stuff like that. So I think that that's the situation that goes on, and that's what gets her in, as far as, she can go to find out like really what has happened to her friend.
From the point of view of dialogue, what do you most enjoy about the coy or clever sort of ways in which she has to use that tool to also navigate her investigation here, and just generally writing dialogue?
Yeah, 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 yeah. She is different with each person she encounters, and so she knows who she has to like be careful with what she says, and she knows who she really doesn't mind like really needling them, which is Brooke Corrigan, the wife, because the wife is such a bitch. And so she doesn't mind like needling her. So her dialogue to each person is different, you know. But then she's also very authentic. And I think that that comes through. Even though she's there for a reason, she's still her authentic self because she knows that that's the best way to get to disarm people is to show your authentic self, but just not show like all of your cards of like why you're there yet until the right time. And I love dialogue. I try to make dialogue as natural as possible. And so I go over it a lot of times, like in this moment, how would somebody say this thing? What exactly would they say? There'll be some there'll be some thinking, like just like how we would have some conversation and it flows regularly. I try to make that my dialogue in my books.
When you were wrestling over resolution here, do you like to know the ending ahead of time, or do you like to just sort of write your way there?
Yeah, that's a good question. For behind these four walls, I had a different outcome than what happened. And that came organically because I thought to myself, at this point, it's got to be this way. I don't know that it can be the other way because that would take a whole lot of suspension of your disbelief, and things like that. And so that one that kind of changed. But then when it changed, then the story like really flowed because then I can really let like emotion come out and how people will deal with like the fallout of things, right? Of finding out things about themselves, about their families, about others, and even I love finding out things about, this person that she thought she knew in Eden and all of that.